Hi guys, and welcome to Boring History Relaxing. Tonight you are standing outside under a wide ancient sky where darkness settles fast and the cold arrives before you have time to think. The air smells sharp, almost metallic, and every breath reminds you that there is nothing between your skin and the night except your own decisions. Somewhere far off a branch cracks and you realise how exposed you really are. You probably will not survive this, at least not without learning fast. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you are here, let me know your location and local time down in the comments. Now dim the lights and let your shoulders drop as you step fully into this earlier version of yourself, long before houses, long before walls, long before the idea of indoor warmth ever existed. You are cold already. Not the mild inconvenient as kind of cold, but the deep creeping chill that settles into joints and fingertips. Night has a weight to it out here. The sun has slipped away without ceremony, and with it goes whatever warmth it offered. You stand in a landscape that does not care if you are tired or frightened. This is the setting every human ancestor knew for far longer than when you a roof or a door. You quickly learn that surviving the coldest nights is not about comfort. It is about not losing heat faster than your body can make it. A simple fact that still holds true today, and one mainstream truth archaeologists agree on, is that early humans were already remarkably good at managing body heat hundreds of thousands of years ago. Even before permanent shelters, Homo sapiens and their relatives survived repeated cold snaps that would terrify most modern campers. You feel the ground beneath your feet still holding a trace of daytime warmth. Instinctively, you crouch, then sit, then pull your knees close. Standing wastes heat. Lying flat on cold earth steals it. You begin to understand through sensation rather than logic. Your body becomes a teacher. Your breath slows and you tuck your chin down, protecting your neck without thinking about it. These small adjustments matter. They always did. The night smells of damp soil and distant smoke from another group somewhere beyond your sight. Smoke means voyeur. Fire means life. But fire is not guaranteed. You have not earned it yet. Tonight you are learning the oldest lesson of all. Before houses existed, before even tents or huts, survival depended on awareness. Where is the wind coming from? How fast is the temperature dropping? Is the sky clear or filling with cloud? Clear skies mean colder nights, a rule that still guides mountaineers today. You listen. The cold sharpens sound. Every rustle feels closer than it is. Fear keeps you alert, and that alertness keeps you moving just enough to stay warm. There is a strange balance here. Move too much and you sweat, which later turns deadly cold. Move too little and your muscles stiffen, heat bleeding away into the dark. There is a quirky detail anthropologists love to mention, and it feels almost funny even now. Some early humans likely slept sitting up, backs against rocks or tree, knees pulled tight, not out of comfort, but because it reduced surface area exposed to cold air and made it easier to spring awake. It is not how you imagine prehistoric sleep, but your own aching legs tell you it worked. Historians still debate how intentional these strategies were at first. Some argue that early humans consciously learned cold management through trial and loss. Others suggest it was gradual instinctive behavior shaped by natural selection rather than planning. Either way, you are here now benefiting from countless nights when someone did not quite make it through. Your fingers ache. You rub them together, then tuck your hands under your thighs. The smell of your own skin mixes with the earth. There is no concept of hygiene here, only heat retention. You notice that even your thoughts slow as the night deepens. Cold has a way of narrowing focus. You're not thinking about tomorrow or identity or meaning. You're thinking about warmth. That focus may be one reason humans learn to cooperate so early. Alone this night is dangerous. Together it becomes survivable. You glance toward the horizon where faint orange flickers pulse. Firelight from another camp, perhaps a short walk away. Joining them might mean warmth. It might also mean conflict. Before houses existed, before locks and boundaries, warmth was a shared resource and a potential source of danger. You weigh the risk with tired eyes. Wind brushes past your face, stealing heat from exposed skin. You turn your body slightly, using your shoulder as a shield. Even without language, you understand the physics. Block the wind, save the heat. This simple truth will follow you through the entire human story. As the stars brighten overhead, you realize that night is not the enemy. Indifference is. The cold does not chase you. It waits. And so you wait too, adapting moment by moment. You are learning the first chapter of human survival, written not in words but in posture, breath and patience. The night stretches on, but you are still here. Still breathing, still warm enough. You shift your weight as the night deepens and something becomes very clear. Standing alone, even wrapped in your own stubborn determination, is not enough. The cold slips around you, finds every gap, every careless angle of skin. Slowly, almost without discussion, bodies begin to draw closer, not touching yet, just nearer, close enough to feel another person's heat drifting faintly through the air. Before houses existed, before walls taught humans how to live apart, warmth was social. You feel that truth now as you angle your body towards someone else, shoulder nearly brushing theirs. Heat radiates outward, subtle but real. It feels almost like leaning toward a low fire, except the fire breathes and shifts beside you. One widely accepted historical fact is that communal sleeping predates nearly every other form of organized shelter. Archaeological sites suggest that early humans routinely slept in tight groups, sometimes dozens together, especially in colder climates. You're not being sentimental when you move closer, you're being practical. You sit knees drawn up, arms wrapped tight around your legs. The person beside you mirrors the posture. Soon another presses in from the other side. Your shoulders touch. It feels awkward. At first, then strangely reassuring. The combined heat builds slowly like a shared breath. The wind still bites, but it has to work harder now. There is a strange intimacy in this kind of survival. You can hear breathing patterns, you smell her skin, old smoke clinging to clothes or hides. None of it is pleasant by modern standards, but none of it matters. The warmth matters. You lean back slightly, letting your spine rest against someone else's chest. It is not romantic, it is geometry. You realize that posture is everything. Curling inward reduces exposed surface area, turning backs to the windshield softer parts of the body. This is not taught with words yet. It is learned through cold toes and aching fingers. Over time, groups develop preferred formations like living walls of flesh and bone. There is a curious anthropological tidbit that still fascinates researchers. Some evidence suggests that early humans may have rotated positions during the night, swapping who faced the wind and who stayed in the warmer center. Not everyone agrees this was deliberate, but your stiff shoulders tell you why it would matter. No one wants to be the cold-facing edge forever. Historians continue to argue whether these huddling behaviors were instinctive or culturally learned. Some believe they emerged automatically, driven by mammalian survival patterns. Others point out regional differences that suggest shared knowledge passed down through generations. You do not care which theory is correct right now. You only care that your fingers hurt less than they did an hour ago. The ground beneath you is still cold though. Heat drains downward relentlessly. You shift again, sitting on your feet now, tucking them underneath your body. Someone passes you a bundle of dry grass or leaves. You place it beneath you without ceremony. Insulation, even thin, makes a difference. This simple act foreshadows mattresses, rugs, and floors that will come tens of thousands of years later. Your breathing slows as your muscles relax slightly. The group settles into a shared rhythm. Someone coughs, someone mutters in their sleep. The sounds are comforting in a way you did not expect. Silence would be worse. Silence would mean being alone. There is risk here too. Huddling means vulnerability. You cannot easily move away if something goes wrong. Trust is forced by this circumstance. Before doors and locks, before private rooms, this was normal. Your survival depends on the behavior of others, and theirs depends on yours. It is cooperation stripped of ideology. You notice how children are placed closer to the center elders too. This is not kindness alone, it is strategy. Smaller bodies lose heat faster. Experienced members are valuable. This unspoken prioritization is one of the earliest forms of social organization, and many scholars see it as a foundation for later family structures. A lesser-known detail often overlooked is that huddling also helped regulate fear. When panic spreads, bodies tense and waste energy. Shared warmth calms nerves, reduces unnecessary movement, and conserves calories. You feel that calm now creeping in as your muscles stop shaking. The wind picks up briefly, testing your living barrier. You lean in tighter. Someone presses an arm against your back. Heat pulls between bodies trapped and reused. This is thermal efficiency without mathematics. It is physics learned through pain and relief. You think about modern life for a moment. Heated homes, personal space, sleeping alone by choice. All of it feels distant. Here, separation would be dangerous, solitude would be lethal, the cold has no respect for independence. As the hours pass, you doze lightly. Not deep sleep. Never deep sleep out here. Your body stays half alert, ready to shift, ready to wake. The shared warmth holds fragile but real. You understand now that surviving the coldest nights before houses existed was not about conquering nature. It was about cooperating with each other. The night still stretches ahead, but it feels different now. Less sharp, less hostile. Wrapped in human heat you endure. Together you make it through another hour, another breath, another quiet stretch of darkness. At some point in the night the glow appears. Not bright at first, just a low pulsing orange that flickers against the dark like a slow heartbeat. Fire. You feel its presence before you feel its warmth. The air changes, the shadows soften. Fear loosens its grip just a little. You inch closer, careful not to rush. Fire is precious and it's never taken lightly. Someone has managed to keep it alive through the evening, feeding it carefully, protecting it from wind with stones and bodies. This alone marks experience. One widely accepted historical fact is that humans were controlling fire at least hundreds of thousands of years ago, and possibly much earlier. Not mastering it fully, but coaxing it, guarding it, learning its moods. You settle near the edge of the firelight. The warmth reaches your shins first, then your hands as you extend them slowly, palms open. Too close, and you risk burns. Too far, and the cold wins. Fire demands attention. It is not passive heat like a modern radiator. It flickers, shifts, and must be negotiated with constantly. The smell of smoke wraps around you. It stings your eyes, dries your throat, clings to hair and skin. Yet you welcome it. Smoke keeps insects away. It masks human scent from predators. It is uncomfortable but protective. There is a reason smoke became part of human nights for so long. You notice how the group arranges itself around the flames. Some face the fire, others turn their backs to it, using the heat to warm muscles and spines. Children are kept at a careful distance, close enough for warmth, far enough to avoid sparks. This choreography feels practiced, almost ritualistic. There is a quirky detail often mentioned in early fire studies. Some researchers believe that people deliberately slept in shifts near the fire, not only to keep it alive, but to manage its personality. Fires flare, die down, spit sparks. Someone always half awake keeps watch. You feel that responsibility pressing gently on the group. Fire is life, but it can also turn dangerous fast. Historians still debate whether fire was used more for warmth or protection in its earliest days. Some argue that predator deterrence was the main benefit, with warmth as a secondary bonus. Others suggest cold climates forced fire use for heat long before fear of animals became central. Sitting here hands thawing, you suspect it was never just one thing. You feed the fire a small stick, watching it catch. The crackle is soothing, rhythmic. Sound becomes part of survival. Silence means danger. Crackling means control. You relax slightly, shoulders dropping as heat sinks deeper into your muscles. Fire does more than warm skin, it changes behavior. People sit closer. Conversations emerge in low murmurs. Stories begin half-whispered, half-mimed. Firelight animates faces, turning expressions into moving shadows. This may be one of the earliest theatres humans ever knew. There is a lesser-known idea that fire altered sleep itself. Exposure to firelight may have shortened sleep cycles, encouraging lighter, more fragmented rest. You feel this now. You doze, wake, stare into embers, doze again. Deep sleep feels risky near open flame. The body adapts. You stretch your feet toward the fire, then pull them back. Heat management becomes instinctive. You rotate slowly, warming one side then the other. This constant movement prevents burns and keeps blood flowing. Fire does not let you freeze, but it does not let you forget where you are either. Wind shifts and someone quickly adjusts a stone barrier. Sparks jump. A child gasps, then calm returns. Fire teaches attentiveness. Neglect it and it punishes you. Respect it and it keeps you alive. You notice how fire reshapes the night sky. Stars fade near its glow. Darkness retreats to the edges. The world feels smaller, more manageable. Psychologically, this matters. Fire creates a center, a place to orient yourself around. Before houses existed, fire was the first interior space humans ever created, an invisible room defined by heat and light. There is an old fringe theory that fire use accelerated human social bonding by forcing people into shared schedules. Fires need tending at night. Someone is always awake, someone always watching. Over time, this may have encouraged communication cooperation, even early forms of storytelling. Not everyone agrees, but sitting here you feel how fire pulls attention inward toward each other. The night deepens. The cold still presses at the edges, but it no longer feels overwhelming. Your breath no longer clouds so thickly. Fingers bend more easily. Toes ache less. Fire has bought you time. You lie back slightly, using a rock as a brace, letting warmth soak into your side. Smoke drifts upward, carrying sparks into the dark. You blink slowly, eyes heavy. The fire will not last forever. Wood is finite. Attention fades with fatigue. You know this warmth is temporary. Still for now it holds. Fire crackles softly like a promise made moment by moment. You are not comfortable, but you are alive. And in this ancient night that is enough. The fire has done what it can, but warmth never stays still for long. As the night stretches on, you reach for something closer. Something you can wear, something that stays with you when you shift away from the flames. Someone nearby loosens a bundle and passes it along. It smells sharp and animal heavy with old fat and smoke. A skin. You drape it over your shoulders and feel the difference immediately. Animal hides change everything. Long before woven cloth or tailored garments, people relied on skins taken from hunted animals to survive cold nights. Archaeological finds from colder regions show clear scraping marks on hides, evidence that early humans were deliberately processing them to improve softness and insulation. This was not decoration, this was survival technology. You tug the hide tighter around your chest. The rough side scratches your neck, but the inner layer traps warmth, holding it close. Your breathing slows as heat stops leaking away so quickly. Clothing, even in its earliest form, extends the fire. It lets you carry warmth with you. The smell is strong. Grease smoke, something almost sweet and rotten at the same time. Modern noses would protest, but yours adjusts quickly. Scent matters less than sensation. The hide blocks wind. It reduces evaporative heat loss. It creates a small personal climate in a world that otherwise offers none. There is an odd little detail that shows up in several early sites. Some hides were worn fur side in, not out. At first glance, this seems backwards, but experiments suggest fur against skin can trap heat more efficiently in still air, while the tough outer skin blocks wind. You adjust the wrap instinctively, pulling the fur closer, learning without words. Researchers continue to question how much early clothing was shaped by culture versus environment. In warmer regions, skins appear simpler and more temporary. In colder areas, they become carefully prepared, stitched, layered. That variation suggests knowledge passed between generations, not just instinct. You feel that inheritance now as your shoulders relax. You notice how people modify their hides through the night. Some tie them at the waist, others wrap them around legs. A child is cocooned completely, only eyes visible. Elders are given the thickest pieces. This quiet redistribution reflects an early understanding of vulnerability and value. The hide stiffens slightly as the night grows colder. Fat within it thickens. You shift, rubbing it between your hands to keep it supple. Movement prevents cracking. Care matters. A torn hide is a serious loss. It cannot be replaced easily. There is a fringe idea that wearing animal skins also altered how people thought about animals themselves. Covering yourself in another creature's body may have blurred boundaries, encouraging early spiritual beliefs or totemic thinking. Not everyone agrees, but it is easy to imagine how wrapping yourself in fur changes how you move, how you feel, how you understand your place in the world. You listen to the night again. The wind sounds different now, muted. The hide absorbs some of its bite. You feel heavier, grounded. Clothing adds weight and with it a sense of stability. Naked skin feels vulnerable. Covered skin feels claimed. Before needles existed, hides were fastened with sinew thorns or simply knotted. You find a rough tie near the edge and secure it across your chest. The pressure feels comforting, like a firm hand holding the fabric in place. This is not fashion. This is architecture for the body. Academic opinion remains divided on exactly when tailored clothing emerged, but there is broad agreement that simple wraps and drapes came much earlier. The ability to carry warmth away from fire allowed people to explore colder landscapes, to sleep farther from flames, to survive nights when fuel ran low. You stretch your legs, testing the new warmth. Blood flows more freely. Toes ache less. The hide does not make you invincible, but it buys you margin, and margin is everything out here. There is another practical advantage you notice. The hide dampens sound, movements become quieter, footsteps soften. This matters at night. Predators listen. So do rivals. Clothing becomes camouflage, not just for sight but for sound. You catch yourself leaning back, resting more fully now. Fatigue creeps in deeper than before. Warmth invites sleep, but sleep must be shallow. You dissolve this, one eye half open, fingers curled into the hide ready to wake. Some experts suggest that early clothing also helped regulate identity within groups. Different skins, different marking, different ways of wearing them may have signaled belonging. Sitting here wrapped like everyone else, you feel both protected and indistinguishable. Individuality matters less than continuity. The fire dims slightly. Someone feeds it again, sparks rise, smoke thickens. You pull the hide up over your mouth, filtering the air. The smell clings, but breathing becomes easier. Another small adaptation layered on top of another. The cold still exists. It presses at exposed cheeks, creeps along the ground, but now it feels negotiable. You have tools, not metal or machine, but knowledge made tangible. Skin scrape, cleaned, dried, and worn. As the night drifts toward its coldest hour, you tuck your chin into the fur and settle. The hide rustles softly as you shift. It is not comfortable by modern standards. It is itchy, heavy, imperfect, but it works. Wrapped in another creature's warmth, you endure the darkness. You are no longer just reacting to the night. You are adapting to it layer by layer, breath by breath, hide by hide. The hide helps, but the cold still seeps upward, slow and patient. You feel it most where your body meets the ground. No matter how well you wrap yourself, the earth steals heat without apology. So you lower yourself carefully, not flat, not upright, but somewhere in between testing positions until the ache eases slightly. The ground remembers the day. It holds warmth longer than the air, but only for a while. By now that memory is fading. You learn quickly that how you meet the earth matters just as much as what you wear. Archaeological traces from early camps show repeated use of the same sleeping spots, suggesting people understood where the ground was less punishing. Slight rise, sandy soil instead of stone, areas layered with old ash. These choices were not random. They were learned through long nights like this one. You scrape together dry grass leaves and bits of bark. The bundle crackles softly as you arrange it beneath you. Even a thin layer breaks the direct pull of cold. Insulation does not need to be thick to be effective. It only needs to trap air. You ease your weight down, curling slightly on your side. The makeshift bedding smells green and dusty. It pokes in places, but the chill dulls. Your spine relaxes a fraction. This is the beginning of bedding long before mats or mattresses born out of simple observation. There is a curious pattern noticed at several ancient sites. Ash from old fires often appears in sleeping areas, not just hearths. Some specialists believe people deliberately slept on cooled ash because it drained heat more slowly and repelled insects. Others are not convinced, arguing the ash simply spread naturally. Either way, you notice the ground feels different where old fires once burned. You shift again, tucking your feet closer to your body. The earth does not care how tired you are. It will keep pulling warmth as long as you give it access. You learn to minimize contact. Knees drawn up, arms folded, body curved into itself like a resting animal. Watching animals becomes instructive. You remember seeing how foxes curl tight in snow, how birds fluff feathers and tuck beaks under wings. There is no shame in copying success. Survival favors those who pay attention. Some researchers point out that sleeping close to the ground also offered protection from wind. The coldest air often moves higher, sliding over the surface. By lowering yourself, you trade ground chill for reduced exposure. It is never a perfect choice, only a better one. You press a hand into the soil. It feels firm, slightly damp. Moisture is dangerous. Wet ground steals heat faster. You are just sliding onto a drier patch, grateful for the faint difference. These small decisions add up over hours. A lesser-known habit emerges in a few ethnographic comparisons. Some groups use shallow depressions scooped just enough to cradle the body. Not deep enough to trap water, but shaped enough to block wind. You shift into a natural hollow, feeling its edges shelter you. Scholarly discussion continues around whether early humans understood insulation in abstract terms or simply followed comfort cues. Either way, comfort and survival aligned closely enough to teach effective behavior. Pain was feedback. Relief was reward. You listen to the ground as much as the air. Insects rustle. Something scurries nearby. You feel vibrations through the soil, faint but real. Being grounded connects you to the night in ways standing never did. Your breathing deepens. The earth supports you, but never fully. There is no softness here, only compromise. You adjust the hide again, pulling it beneath your hip to add another layer. Every barrier helps. The fire crackles behind you. Heat reaches your back while the ground chills your front. You rotate slowly, warming each side in turn. This constant repositioning prevents any one part of your body from losing too much warmth. Sleep becomes a series of short rests stitched together by movement. Some experts suggest that these fragmented sleep patterns shaped human cognition, encouraging lighter sleep and frequent waking. Lying here, half dozing, half alert, you feel how natural it is. Deep, uninterrupted sleep would be a liability. The night grows quieter. The wind settles. Stars burn cold above you. The earth beneath you feels less hostile, now familiar. You have learned its rhythms, its demands. You press your cheek briefly to the ground, then pull back. Too cold, you smile faintly at the lesson. Even mistakes teach quickly here. The ground is not an enemy. It is a tool that must be used carefully. Pressed against it, you survive. Flat upon it, you freeze. Hover above it with leaves and ash and hides, and you endure. As the hours crawl on, you find a fragile equilibrium. The earth steals heat. You replace it with fire, with fur, with posture, with patience. This is how nights were survived before floors, before beds, before walls rose between human bodies and the soil. Curled close to the ground, breathing slow and steady, you hold on to warmth like a shared secret between you and the earth itself. The ground and the fire have taught you what they can, but sometimes the night offers something else. Not built by human hands, not designed, simply there. You notice the rock face rising nearby, its surface dark and still, an overhang, a shallow cave, a place where the wind does not quite reach. You move toward it, carefully testing each step. The air shifts as you cross an invisible boundary. The cold does not vanish, but it softens. Sound changes too. Wind no longer whistles past your ears. It brushes the stone instead, sliding away. Natural shelters like caves and rock overhangs were among the earliest nighttime refuges humans relied on. Evidence from long-studied sites shows repeated habitation in these spaces across thousands of years. Charcoal stains, tool fragments, and compacted floors all point to their importance. You're stepping into a long tradition. You settle near the back, not too deep. Darkness thickens the farther in you go, and visibility matters. You want shelter, not blindness. The stone radiates a steady cold, but it does not steal heat as aggressively as open ground exposed to wind. You notice the smell first, damp mineral, old smoke embedded in rock pores. The cave remembers every fire ever lit here. That memory lingers faint but real. You breathe it in, feeling oddly connected to others who stood exactly where you stand now. There is an interesting pattern noted by many researchers. Caves were rarely used constantly. Instead, they were revisited seasonally or during extreme weather. This suggests people understood their benefits and limits. Caves trap warmth, but they also trap smoke and moisture. Comfort always comes with trade-offs. You lean against the stone hide between your back and the rock. The surface is cool but sits stable. It does not move. It does not shift like spore. That stability brings a sense of security that open ground lacks. A lesser-known detail shows up in some cave studies. Fire scars often appear closer to entrances rather than deep inside. This positioning reduced smoke build-up and allowed heat to circulate outward. You sit where the air feels freshest, copying an arrangement refined over generations. Some specialists continue to question whether caves shaped early human behavior in lasting ways. Did these enclosed spaces influence social structure or communication? Did they encourage longer stays in one place? The debate remains active. Sitting here, you feel how walls, even natural ones, change how you think. Sound behaves differently. Voices echo softly, footsteps carry. You become aware of every movement. This can be comforting or unsettling depending on your mood. Predators are less likely to surprise you here, but escape routes are fewer. You glance toward the entrance, always keeping it in sight. Light from the fire outside flickers against stone painting, slow-moving shadows. This constant visual anchor keeps you oriented, reminding you where safety lies. There is a fringe observation from ethnographic parallels. Some groups avoided sleeping deep inside caves altogether, preferring overhangs or shallow shelters. Reasons range from smoke to superstition. Caves can feel like the mouths of something larger, something watching. You understand the hesitation. The temperature remains steadier here. While the outside air continues to drop, the cave resists sudden change. Thermal mass works quietly, smoothing extremes. You relax slightly, knowing the night will not surprise you as sharply. You arrange your bedding, again leaves and hide layered carefully. The stone floor is unforgiving but predictable. You choose predictability every time. Some experts believe that early use of caves may have delayed the development of built shelters in certain regions. Why build when the land already offers walls? Others argue the opposite, that caves inspired the idea of enclosure. The question remains open. You listen to water dripping somewhere deeper inside. Each drop echoes, marking time slowly. The sound is hypnotic steady. It encourages stillness. The cave is not warm, but it is calmer. Wind no longer strips heat from your skin. Firelight lingers longer. Smoke drifts upward and outward rather than swirling around your face. You stretch out a little more than before, not fully, but enough to ease cramped muscles. The ceiling overhead makes you feel smaller but also safer. The sky is no longer pressing down on you. As the night deepens, others join you. Bodies line the back wall space just enough. Heat accumulates gently. The cave becomes a shared pocket of endurance. You understand now why these places mattered. Not as permanent homes, but as temporary answers. When the night turned cruel, when the wind sharpened the earth, sometimes offered a compromise. Wrapped in hide, grounded on stone, shielded from the worst of the air, you close your eyes for a few breaths. The cave holds steady. Outside the cold waits. Inside you rest. By morning standards, it would still be night, but something in the air shifts. The cold has a different texture now, less sudden, more settled. You rise quietly, joint stiff hide slipping from your shoulders as you stand. Staying still for too long is its own danger. Warmth must be maintained, not assumed. You are not meant to stay here forever. Before fixed shelters existed, survival often meant knowing when to leave rather than how to endure. You sense it in the group, subtle movements, packs adjusted, children nudged awake. The decision is forming without words. It is time to move. Following warmth instead of fighting cold shaped early human movement across continents. Seasonal migration is one of the clearest patterns in early human history. Groups tracked animals, plants and climates shifting location before nights grew deadly. You feel that logic now in your bones. You step out of the cave and into open air. The sky has softened from black to deep blue. Frost glitters faintly on the ground. The cold bites harder when you stop moving, so you do not. You walk slowly at first, then with purpose. The land opens ahead. Lower ground holds damp cold. Higher ridges catch wind. You angle toward a familiar path one used before. Repetition matters. Trails form not from roads, but from remembered comfort. Someone once found warmer ground here, and the knowledge stuck. There is a curious detail observed in several ancient migration routes. Paths often follow south-facing slopes in colder regions, catching more sunlight during the day. This choice increases ground warmth at night. You walk along such a slope now, feeling how the earth retains heat just a little longer. Movement creates warmth, but it must be controlled. You keep pace steady, not rushing. Sweat would be dangerous. Wet skin turns deadly fast when the sun drops. You adjust your hide, loosening it slightly as your body heats. Some researchers disagree on whether early migrations were planned seasons ahead or reactive, driven by immediate discomfort. Evidence supports both views. Sometimes groups followed predictable cycles, other times they fled sudden cold snaps. You suspect most nights demanded flexibility more than foresight. You pause briefly as the wind picks up. The group clusters, instinctively forming a loose shield while adjusting direction. The land teaches cooperation again. Alone, navigation is guesswork. Together it becomes memory. As you walk, you notice signs of previous camps. Charred stones, flattened grass, a faint ring where fire once burned. These markers reassure you. Others survived here. You're not guessing blindly. There is a rarely mentioned practice noted in a few ethnographic parallels. Some groups carried smouldering embers during migration wrapped carefully in bark or fungus, allowing fire to be reborn quickly at the next stop. You catch a glimpse of someone doing just that, guarding a dull red glow like a living thing. The sun finally lifts above the horizon. Its warmth is weak but welcome. Light spreads slowly, revealing frost patterns and animal tracks. You adjust course again, aiming for a stand of trees ahead. Trees break wind, trees offer fuel. Interpretations vary on how far groups travel between camps. Some suggest short hops of a few kilometers. Others argue for longer overnight moves during harsh weather. Judging by your aching legs, tonight will be a shorter one. You reach the trees as daylight strengthens. The cold loosens its grip slightly. You stop, finally allowing your muscles to rest. Fire is coaxed back to life. Smoke rises again, familiar and comforting. Migration is not escape. It is negotiation. You move just enough to stay ahead of danger without exhausting yourself. The night taught you its limits. The land offers options if you know how to read them. As the group settles, you glance back toward where you slept. The cave fades into shadow, just another feature now. Useful, but not permanent. Nothing is permanent yet. You sit near the new fire, warming your hands, already aware that another night will come. It always does. But you have learned something important. Sometimes surviving the coldest nights before houses existed meant refusing to stay still. It meant walking toward warmth, guided by the memory cooperation and the quiet knowledge that the land itself could be read like a map. The trees shelter you for now, but as daylight fades again, you realize that movement alone is not enough. Wind always finds a way back. It cycles through branches, slides across open ground, and pulls heat from skin with quiet persistence. You need something simple, something fast, something you can build with what is already around you. You begin stacking branches, not neatly, not beautifully, just enough to interrupt the flow of air. A fallen log becomes a spine. Broken limbs lean against it. Stones are wedged at the base. The structure is uneven, imperfect, but when you crouch behind it, the difference is immediate. The wind dulls. Your breath steadies. Across many early sites, patterns of branch and stone placement appear repeatedly, even where no full shelters existed. These low barriers show that people understood airflow long before they understood architecture. Blocking wind conserves heat more effectively than adding layers alone. You press closer to the makeshift wall. It smells of sap and damp bark. Resin sticks faintly to your fingers. The barrier does not trap warmth, but it prevents it from being stolen. That distinction matters. Others add to it without discussion. Someone drags another branch, someone else rolls a flat stone into place. The wall grows wider, curving slightly, shaped by instinct rather than design. You angle it so the open side faces away from the prevailing breeze. An unexpected pattern appears in some ancient camps. Windbreaks were often built in shallow arcs rather than straight lines. This shape reduced turbulence, preventing gusts from curling back around. You feel it working now as the air settles into calmer stillness behind the curve. Fire is lit just beyond the barrier. The wall reflects heat back towards you, amplifying its effect. Suddenly, a small fire feels larger. The space behind the windbreak becomes a pocket of survivable calm. Opinions differ on whether these structures were rebuilt nightly or used over time. Some show signs of repeated repair, suggesting familiarity with place. Others appear temporary abandon after a single night. Your own wall feels temporary but effective. You could sleep here. You sit with your back to the branches, hide pulled tight. The difference is subtle but profound. Your shoulders stop tensing against each gust. Your ears no longer strain to predict the next blast of cold air. There is a little-known detail observed in a handful of coastal sites. Windbreaks there were sometimes weighted with seaweed or kelp which trapped moisture, but also blocked wind remarkably well. The smell was likely awful, but the warmth mattered more. You realize that this is the beginning of walls. Not to enclose space, but to shape it. To tell the wind where it is allowed to go. The idea is simple but powerful. You test the boundary, leaning forward into the breeze, then back again. The contrast teaches quickly. Comfort exists in gradients, not absolutes. As darkness returns, the windbreak defines the camp. People cluster behind it. The fire burns more steadily. Sparks rise straighter now. Smoke drifts upward instead of sideways. Some researchers suggest that repeated exposure to wind may have driven early innovation faster than cold alone. Wind is unpredictable. It punishes mistakes. Blocking it feels like control in a chaotic world. You lie down angled so your feet face the fire and your back rests against the barrier. Leaves and ash cushion the ground beneath you. The hide seals in warmth above. Fire warms one side. Wood shields the other. For the first time you feel something close to comfort. Not luxury, not ease, but balance. The wind still howls beyond the wall, searching for gaps. It finds fewer now. You listen to it pass by, no longer cutting through you. In this small arrangement of branches and stone you glimpse the future. Walls will grow taller, roofs will follow, but tonight this is enough. You close your eyes knowing the night will still test you, but it will have to work harder now. The windbreak holds the fire steadies and something else begins to happen. Without being told, without planning, bodies drift closer again. Not in a tight knot this time, but in a deliberate arrangement shaped by what you've already learned. Heat is shared best when it is layered. You sit, then lower yourself beside others, backs nearly touching shoulders, brushing. The space between bodies shrinks until warmth overlaps. It is not crowded, it is efficient. You feel the heat from the fire on your legs, the heat from another person along your side, and the blocked wind behind you. 3 defences working together. Across many early human sites, clustering patterns appear repeatedly, even when no permanent structures existed. These patterns suggest people understood spatial heat sharing long before formal shelters were built. Distance was adjusted carefully. Too close invited tension, too far invited cold. You notice how everyone positions themselves slightly differently. Larger bodies take outer edges. Smaller ones remain closer to the centre. This is not announced. It simply happens. Experience has taught these shapes over countless nights. There is a small but telling detail seen in some cold climate camps. People sometimes slept in loose rings rather than lines facing inward toward a shared heat source. This reduced exposed surface area while allowing quick movement if danger appeared. You shift into a similar curve, knees bent, spine rounded. Trust hangs quietly in the air. You are close enough to feel breathing, to sense small movements, to hear someone stir. At the same time, you're vulnerable. There are no locks here, no doors. Safety depends on familiarity and shared need. Interpretations vary on how early humans balance cooperation and caution during the night. Some argue fear kept groups tightly bonded. Others believe routine dulled suspicion over time. Sitting here, you feel both. Relaxation mixed with readiness. The cold presses again as the fire dips. Someone adds fuel. Light flares briefly, painting faces in amber. Shadows dance across the windbreak. Heat returns. No one speaks. Words are unnecessary. You tuck your hands between your thighs, trapping warmth. Someone mirrors the movement. Another leans back slightly, offering their spine as support. These small gestures repeat night after night, becoming tradition without ever being named. A rarely discussed observation from ethnographic parallels is that shared sleeping reduced heat loss so effectively that fewer fires were needed overnight. Less fire meant less fuel, less smoke, less attention from predators. Huddling conserved more than warmth. It conserved resources. You feel drowsiness deepen, your muscles finally unclench. The ground still chills, but not enough to wake you fully. The hide rustles as you adjust, careful not to disturb others. Breathing sinks slowly. Inhale, exhale. The rhythm spreads, calming nerves. Panic wastes energy. Calm preserves it. This may be one reason communal sleeping persisted even when other options existed. Some specialists suggest that these shared nights shaped early social bonds more strongly than daylight activities. Darkness strips away distraction. In the cold, survival is immediate and mutual. Sitting here pressed shoulder to shoulder, you understand why. A child shifts nearby. An elder coughs softly. Someone snores. These sounds reassure rather than irritate. They mean life continues. Silence would be alarming. The night deepens again, but it feels manageable now. Not conquered, just balanced. Heat flows from fire to body to body, from ground to air. Everything moves. Nothing is wasted if you pay attention. You drift into shallow sleep, waking briefly whenever the fire pops or the wind changes pitch. Each time warmth is still there. Shared, maintained. Before houses existed, before rooms separated people at night, survival depended on this quiet choreography. Bodies arranged not by comfort, but by physics and trust. Curled among others, listening to breath and fire and wind beyond the barrier, you rest. Not alone. Never alone. By the time the next camp forms, the air smells different. Sharper, wetter. You hear it before you see it, the steady movement of water nearby, sliding over stone, whispering through reeds. Rivers and shorelines draw people for good reasons even when nights turn cold. Water means food, travel life. It also means damp air that creeps into bones if you let it. You settle near the edge of the group, close enough to hear the current, but far enough to avoid the worst of the chill. Cold behaves differently here. It clings, it settles low. Moist air steals warmth faster than dry wind, and you feel it almost immediately along your ankles and wrists. People have camped near water for as long as humans have left traces behind. Fish bones, shells, and worn stones appear again and again at ancient riversides. These places fed people reliably, even in harsh seasons, but surviving the night required extra care. You test the ground with your foot. Too soft, too wet. You move upslope slightly, choosing higher ground where cold air drains downward toward the water. The difference is subtle but real. The soil feels firmer here, less damp. You nod to yourself. Experience matters. Someone drags driftwood into place, stacking it as a low barrier. Wet wood smokes badly, but it still burns. The fire catches slowly, hissing and popping, releasing a thick, salty scent. You cough, then adjust position. Smoke is unpleasant, but cold water air is worse. There is an odd pattern, seen in some early shoreline camps. Fires were often built higher than usual, sometimes on raised gravel or stone platforms. This lifted heat above damp ground and helped it travel farther. You notice the flames climbing, reaching outward instead of sinking. You wrap your hide tighter, pulling it up around your neck. Moisture seeps into the fibers, making them heavier. Wet insulation loses effectiveness. You stay alert, shifting closer to the fire when you can, drying one side at a time. Disagreement remains over how frequently early groups chose water camps during winter. Some evidence suggests they avoided them entirely in the coldest months. Other sites show year-round use, implying refined strategies. Sitting here, you understand both choices. Water offers food. It also demands respect. You listen to the river. Its sound fills the dark, masking footsteps and distant noises. This can be comforting or dangerous. Predators move quietly near water, so do other people. You keep the fire visible, a warning as much as a comfort. A small detail emerges as you watch others settle. People arrange themselves with feet toward the fire backs, angled away from the river. This reduces exposure to damp breezes that slide off the water surface. No one explains it. Bodies remember what works. There is a lesser-known observation from riverine archaeology. Camps often appear slightly downstream from fishing spots rather than directly beside them. This reduced insect density and avoided cold air pulling where water slowed. You realize you have done the same without thinking. The night thickens. Fog forms low over the river, glowing faintly in firelight. It creeps forward slow and silent. You shift again, climbing a bit higher, dragging bedding with you. Leaves stick to your hands, cold and slick. Your breath clouds heavily now. You slow it, inhaling through your nose, exhaling into the lid pulled over your mouth. Moist air warms slightly before reaching your lungs. Another small adaptation. Some researchers suspect that repeated exposure to damp, cold-shaped preferences for certain landscapes over others. Dry plateaus, open plains, areas where cold was sharp but brief rather than lingering. Watching the fog curl, you see why. Fire maintenance becomes constant. Wet fuel burns fast and unevenly. Someone stays awake, feeding it, turning logs, coaxing flame. Others doze lightly, waking when the heat fades. The rhythm is familiar now. Shared responsibility, shared warmth. There is a strange comfort in the river sound as you drift in and out of sleep. It covers small noises, making the world feel distant. At the same time, it demands vigilance. You wake often, checking the fire, checking the fog, checking the shapes beyond the light. The ground cools steadily. Moisture rises. You tuck your feet closer, pressing them against another body briefly, then shifting back. The contact warms quickly, then fades, enough to keep feeling alive. You realize that surviving cold nights near water is about compromise. You accept dampness in exchange for food and movement. You work harder to stay warm, you pay attention. As the fire burns lower, stars reflect faintly on the river surface. The sight is beautiful in a quiet way. Beauty does not equal safety, but it helps morale. That matters more than you might expect. When dawn finally approaches, the fog thins. Cold lingers, but the worst has passed. You stretch carefully, muscles stiff, hide heavy with moisture. You survived another night by adjusting, listening, choosing position wisely. Before houses, before raised floors and sealed walls, water shaped both opportunity and danger. You learn to camp with it, not against it. And as the sky lightens, you already begin to plan where you will sleep when darkness returns. Night settles again, and with it comes the smell you now associate with survival. Smoke. Thick, dry, and slightly bitter, it curls into your clothes and hair until it becomes part of you. The fire crackles low tonight, fed carefully, not allowed to roar. Too much flame wastes fuel. Too little invites the cold back in. You sit close enough for warmth, but not so close that sparks threaten your hide. Smoke drifts across your face, making your eyes sting and water. You blink slowly, letting tears run. It is uncomfortable, but you stay where you are. Smoke does something important here. Long-observed patterns from early camps show that smoke was tolerated far more than modern sensibilities would allow. People accepted irritation because smoke discouraged insects' masked scent and created a barrier between humans and the dark beyond the firelight. Comfort came second to protection. You pull the hide higher, covering your mouth and nose loosely. The air you breathe warms slightly before reaching your lungs. Smoke seeps through but less sharply. You learn to angle your head, turning away when it thickens, leaning back when it thins. Breathing becomes a practiced rhythm. The fire pops softly. A log shifts. Someone stirs nearby. Smoke pulls low for a moment, then lifts as the air moves. You notice how the group positions itself to manage this. Some sit higher on rocks. Others stay lower where the smoke passes overhead. This silent arrangement keeps everyone breathing just well enough. There is an unusual detail that appears in a few early sites. Certain plants seem to have been added deliberately to fires not for fuel, but for the smoke they produced. Some leaves repel insects more effectively. Others burn slowly, creating steady haze. The smell changes slightly as someone tosses in a handful. It is sharper now, almost sweet. Debate continues over how intentional these choices were. Did people recognize specific plant effects, or were they simply using what was available? Sitting here, eyes stinging less than before, you suspect trial and memory played a role. Smoke also confuses predators. Your scent blends with burned wood and damp earth. To an animal downwind, you are harder to identify. Firelight warns, as smoke conceals, together they create a zone of uneasy safety. You lean back, letting smoke pass over your shoulders instead of into your face. The warmth settles deeper into your chest. Coughing is occasional but manageable. Everyone accepts it as part of the night. Some observers have suggested that long exposure to smoke shaped human lungs and tolerance over generations. Whether or not that is true, you feel how adaptable the body is. What would be unbearable in a modern room becomes normal here within minutes. The fire dims slightly. Someone adds fuel, careful to place it so smoke flows upward rather than outward. This skill matters. A poorly tended fire can choke a camp or attract attention. You watch the hands at work, steady and practiced. Your clothes and hide saturated now. The smell clings heavy and persistent. You know it will follow you for days. There is no washing it out easily. Smoke becomes part of your identity. A quiet moment settles in. The fire hums softly. Smoke drifts lazily. The cold presses at the edges but does not break through. You feel your eyelids grow heavy again. Sleep near smoke is never deep. Your body wakes, often responding to changes in air quality, shifts in heat, sounds beyond the light. This light sleep keeps you alive. You wake, adjust, rest again. There is a small but telling pattern noticed in any long-used camps. Ash layers build up over time, suggesting fires were kept burning night after night in roughly the same place. This consistency created warmer ground and predictable smoke patterns. You sit on such ground now, benefiting from yesterday's embers. You notice how smoke softens sound. Crackling becomes muted. Wind noise fades. The world feels wrapped, padded. This sensory dampening calms nerves, making the night feel less sharp. At some point your eyes close for longer stretches. Dreams flicker and fade. Smoke weaves into them, carrying shapes and shadows. You wake briefly, cough once, then settle again. Someone nearby shifts position, stepping out of the smoke stream and into clearer air. You take their place instinctively, balancing warmth and breath. The rotation happens without words. Firelight dances across faces, highlighting closed eyes, relaxed mouths. In the smoke, expressions soften. Tension eases. Fear dulls. The night passes this way, but slow and hazy. Smoke lingers like a protective veil, imperfect but effective. You endure irritation for the sake of warmth and safety. It is a trade you accept willingly. As the fire burns lower and the sky begins to lighten, smoke thins. Fresh air creeps back in. Your lungs feel clearer. Your head feels heavy but calm. Before houses existed, before chimneys, and controlled ventilation, smoke was both problem and solution. It stung and choked, but it protected and warmed. You survive the night by learning how to live inside it, adjusting breath by breath. You stretch slowly, joints stiff, clothes reeking. The smell stays with you as proof that you made it through. Another night carried on smoke and fire fades into memory. The cold tonight feels heavier, pressing down rather than slicing through. You sense it before anyone says a word. The air is still. Too still. When wind disappears and deep winter temperatures often fall harder. You step closer to the fire, feeling its reach shrink against the vastness of the dark. This is the kind of cold that shaped entire chapters of human history. During long glacial periods, vast stretches of the world were locked in ice and bitter air. Evidence scattered across Europe and Asia shows people living, moving and surviving through conditions that would challenge even modern cold weather gear. You're standing in the echo of those nights now. Your breath comes out thick and white. Frost gathers on hair and hides. The fire struggles its flames low and tight, conserving energy like the bodies around it. Fuel is fed slowly, deliberately. Waste would be dangerous. You crouch, drawing knees up, wrapping arms around them until your spine curves inward. Every inch of exposed skin matters. Faces are partially hidden behind hides. Only eyes and noses peek out red and shining in firelight. The ground is harder tonight. Frozen soil does not give. It pulls heat fast. You double your bedding, layering leaves and ash beneath you. Even then, the cold seeps through, steady and patient. In places once buried under ice sheets, people adapted by refining every detail of night survival. Clothing grew thicker. Fires were positioned more carefully. Camps were chosen with ruthless precision. You feel that precision now as the group tightens its formation, leaving no gaps for cold air to slip through. There is a small detail that appears again and again in Ice Age camps. Fire pits are often shallow but wide-spreading heat across more bodies rather than concentrating it in one spot. You sit at the edge of such a fire, rotating slowly to warm each side in turn. Questions still linger about how often people face temperatures far below freezing versus milder cold punctuated by extremes. Climate records suggest variability rather than constant brutality. But nights like this one would have been unforgettable, shaping memory and behaviour long after the cold receded. You listen to the silence. Snow absorbs sound even when unseen. The world feels muffled, distant. This quiet can be unsettling. You become hyper-aware of your own breathing, of the fire's faint hiss. Someone nearby stamps their feet gently, keeping blood flowing. Another rubs hands together under a hide. Small movements prevent stiffness. Stillness is tempting but dangerous. There is an odd practice noted in a few cold region ethnographic records. People sometimes slept in short bursts, deliberately waking themselves to move, feed fires, and check circulation. Long sleep risked hypothermia. You find yourself waking, often shifting position, then resting again. The cold changes how you think. Thoughts slow. Decisions become simpler. Warmth is priority. Everything else fades. You're not bored, you are focused. Food matters more now. Fat reserves burn steadily, producing heat. Those who ate well earlier fare better tonight. You feel the quiet comfort of stored energy working beneath your skin. Some specialists believe that enduring extreme cold favored cooperation more strongly than almost any other environmental pressure. Alone you would fail quickly. Together you last. Sitting shoulder to shoulder, you feel that truth settle in. The fire dims again, fuel is added sparingly. Sparks rise briefly, then fade. Smoke hangs low, barely moving. You angle your face away, breathing shallowly. Your toes ache. You flex them slowly, one by one, then tuck them under your legs again. Pain fades to numbness, then returns. You monitor it closely. Numbness is a warning, not relief. Time stretches. The night feels endless, but you know it is not. The cold has limits, just like you do. When the sky finally begins to pale, relief spreads quietly through the group. No cheers, no celebration, just exhaled breath and small movements as people test stiff limbs. You survived another cold that once shaped migrations, innovations, and resilience itself. Nights like this pushed humans to refine fire, clothing, cooperation, and eventually shelter. As the sun rises weakly over the frozen land, warmth creeps back, slow but undeniable. You unwrap slightly, letting light touch your face. The cold loosens its grip. You made it through a night that once defined the edge of human endurance. And you know that tonight, when darkness returns, everything you learned will matter again. Morning leaves behind more than light. It leaves behind tools scattered near the fire, darkened by soot, smoothed by hands. As the camp stirs, you notice how closely warmth and objects are as tied together. Nothing here exists just to exist. Every item earns its place by helping you endure the night. You pick up a stone, warm on one side, cold on the other. Someone shaped it long ago, chipping flakes away until it fit the palm easily. Stones like this strike, spark, scrape, hide, break frozen earth. Without them, fire would be luck instead of routine. You turn it slowly, feeling its weight. Tools are stored, warmth, effort saved for later. Nearby, a length of hardened wood rests against a log. Its tip is darkened fire treated to resist wear. It has been used to dig, to pry, to steady burning fuel. Simple but reliable. The kind of object you trust in the dark because it has never failed you before. Long nights taught people which tools mattered most. Items that helped start fires, quickly repair torn hides, or adjust shelters became essential. Over time, these objects grew more refined, not a decorative, just dependable. You see that refinement here in edges smoothed by repetition and rather than polish. You crouch near the fire and use a flake to shave bark from a branch. Thin curls fall away, perfect tinder. Fire responds immediately, catching faster, burning steadier. The difference between success and shivering can be a single prepared sliver of wood. There is something calming about this work. Your hands know what to do. Even when your mind is tired, muscle memory carries you forward. Tool use reduces uncertainty. It turns cold nights from chaos into process. You notice how tools are shared, but also watched. Everyone knows who carries what. Losing a flint is serious. Breaking a scraper matters. These objects are not personal property in the modern sense, but they are respected. Carelessness costs warmth. One curious habit appears as you watch others work. Tools are often warmed briefly before use, set near the fire to take the edge off their cold. A frozen stone numbs fingers quickly. A warm one feels alive, responsive. You do the same without thinking, laying your flake near the embers for a moment. Repair work happens constantly. A tear in a hide is stitched with sinew before night returns. A cracked handle is reinforced. Nothing is left for later if later might be colder. Maintenance is survival. You sit back and observe how the camp reorganizes as tools come into play. The fire becomes a workspace. People gather closer not just for heat but for productivity. Warmth and usefulness overlap. As evening approaches, again tools are arranged deliberately. Fire-making pieces are placed together. Cutting edges are kept within reach. Heavy objects are positioned in a position to block wind. The camp prepares itself for darkness in quiet stages. You feel a sense of reassurance knowing these tools exist. Fire is not a gamble tonight. Repairs are possible. Adjustments can be made. That confidence changes how you approach the coming cold. When night returns, the difference is clear. Fire is built faster. Windbreaks are improved more efficiently. Bedding is layered with purpose, and tools amplify knowledge, turning experience into action. You strike stone against stone, sparks jump, tinder catches, flame blooms. The fire responds as expected. Predictability is a gift in the cold. The night deepens, but you feel less at its mercy now. Tools give you options. They shorten exposure. They reduce mistakes. They make warmth something you can plan for rather than hope for. You rest with the scraper near your hand, hide secure around your shoulders. The fire burns steady, tended by practiced movements. Around you, others settle into familiar positions, confident in the small collection of objects that stand between them and the cold. Before permanent shelters, before roofs and floors, tools bridge the gap. They allowed people to shape nights instead of merely enduring them. Sitting here warmed by flame you helped create, you understand that survival was never just about strength. It was about preparation, repetition, and the quiet power of well-used things. As the fire crackles softly, you close your eyes, knowing that if the cold presses harder, you have what you need, close at hand, with fire and memory, enough to last until morning. And as night settles again, you notice how attention shifts toward the smallest and the oldest among you. Cold does not treat everybody the same. You feel it in your own muscles, but you see it more clearly in others. Children shiver sooner. Elders move more slowly. The night makes these differences impossible to ignore. The group responds without discussion. Sleeping positions change. A child is guided closer to the fire. An older body is eased into a spot where heat lingers longest. Stronger adults take the outer edges, absorbing more of the cold so others do not have to. No one announces this arrangement. It emerges naturally shaped by countless nights that taught hard lessons. You sit near an elder whose breathing is shallow but steady. They pull their hide tight with practiced hands. Their movements are slower but precise. Experience shows an economy. Nothing wasted, nothing rushed. Across long stretches of human time, survival depended on keeping knowledge alive as much as keeping bodies warm. Elders carried memory. They knew where shelter could be found, how weather shifted, which materials worked best. Protecting them through the night protected the group's future. Children restless even in exhaustion are tucked between warm bodies. You feel a small foot press briefly against your leg before settling. The contact warms both of you. The child's breathing slows, syncing with the rhythm around them. There is a quiet habit you notice as the night deepens. Adults wake more often when children sleep nearby. Small shifts, quick checks. A hand rests briefly on a small back, confirming warmth, then stillness returns. Cold nights teach responsibility. You cannot ignore weakness. The environment will punish that quickly. So care becomes part of survival, not sentiment, but necessity. You remember how earlier in the night movement kept you warm. Now stillness must be balanced with vigilance. You change position slightly, ensuring the elder beside you remains shielded from drafts. The windbreak holds, but gaps appear as people shift. Someone quietly fills one with a bundle of leaves. In some groups, children were placed not only near warmth but near sound. Breathing murmurs, even snoring helped regulate sleep, preventing dangerous deep rest in extreme cold. You feel how noise reassures, anchoring everyone to the present moment. The fire dims. Fuel is added carefully. Sparks rise briefly, then fade. The light reveals tired faces lined not by age alone, but by repeated nights like this. Resilience is etched slowly. You notice how elders rarely complain. They conserve energy. Words cost warmth. When they do speak, it is brief, practical. A suggestion about fire placement, a reminder to block the wind. Their value is clear even in silence. Children stir again, dreaming, perhaps. You adjust the hide around them without fully waking them. Their small bodies radiate heat, unevenly surprising in intensity, one moment fragile the next. You stay alert. As hours pass, the group holds together through quiet coordination. No one sleeps deeply. Everyone contributes, even if only by staying warm enough to share heat. The cold presses hardest just before dawn. Muscles ache, fingers stiffen. You rub your hands together slowly, then rest them against another's back. Warmth flows again. When the sky begins to lighten, relief spreads gently. Children wake first, restless, hungry. Elders stretch carefully, joints protesting. Everyone survived another night, not through individual strength, but through arrangement, awareness, and care. Before houses existed, before insulated rooms separated generations, nights like this defined community. Warmth moved through the group according to need. Protection followed knowledge. Survival required seeing vulnerability clearly and responding without hesitation. As daylight grows, you sit back and breathe, watching steam rise from bodies as hides loosen. The cold releases its grip slowly. You feel tired but steady. Another night passed. Another lesson reinforced. In the cold, no one survives alone, and no one is carried without purpose. Warmth, like responsibility, is shared. As the fire burns low and the group settles again, your attention drifts beyond the circle of light. The night feels alive out there. Not hostile exactly, just busy. Shapes move at the edge of vision. Sounds ripple through the dark. Somewhere nearby, an animal shifts its weight, then goes still. You realize you are not the only one trying to survive the cold. Long before humans understood insulation or airflow, animals had already mastered it. Tonight you find yourself watching them more closely than usual. A fox curls into a tight ball near a fallen tree tail, wrapped over its nose. Birds tuck their heads beneath wings, bodies puffed into round shapes that trap air. Even insects vanish into cracks and leaf piles, avoiding exposure altogether. You pull your own body tighter, mirroring what you see. Knees up, chin down, hide wrapped snugly. It works. The lesson is immediate. People learned by watching. That much becomes obvious when you notice how familiar these movements feel. Burrowing slightly into bedding, choosing sheltered spots, turning backs to the wind. None of this feels invented. It feels borrowed. You notice a small depression nearby where something slept earlier. The shape is perfect, curved, protected on three sides by roots, an animal bed. You do not take it, but you understand it. The earth itself has been shaped into warmth by repeated use. In several cold regions, people eventually copied these designs more deliberately, scooping shallow hollows or piling material into nests rather than flatbeds. It is easier to stay warm when the world curves around you instead of lying open beneath you. You watch the firelight catch on eyes in the distance. A deer pauses, then moves on. Predators circle farther out, keeping distance from smoke and noise. Animals know fire too. They respect it without understanding it. There is a small habit you pick up without thinking. When the wind shifts, you turn your body slightly like an animal adjusting its stance. When the fire dims, you rise briefly, stamp your feet, then settle again. These movements conserve warmth while keeping blood flowing. Some people hum softly. Not songs, just sound, low vibration in the chest. You notice animals respond similarly, shifting position when temperatures drop, never fully still. Absolute stillness belongs to death, not rest. You spot tracks in the dirt near the camp edge, small prints leading into brush, whatever made them slept somewhere protected. You glance at your own position and adjust again, tucking closer to the windbreak. Learning continues even now. People often imagine early humans as masters of their environment. But nights like this tell a different story. Survival came from humility, from copying what already worked, from paying attention to the quiet experts who had been living through winters long before you arrived. You feel calmer knowing that cold has been solved many times over in many bodies across countless species. You are not inventing survival, you are participating in it. As the night deepens, you sleep lightly, waking often, adjusting instinctively. Each movement echoes something older than language. Curl, tuck, shield, wait. The animals settle too, sounds fade. The world grows still but not frozen. Life holds its breath together. When morning finally creeps in, frost glistens on leaves and fur alike. You stretch slowly, joints stiff but intact. You survived by watching, by copying, by respecting the lessons written quietly into the land. Before houses, before walls and roofs, survival meant listening closely to everything that had already learned how to endure. Tonight, the animals were your teachers. The night does not go quiet just because you wish it would. It speaks in small sounds that travel farther in the cold. A branch snapping somewhere beyond the firelight. A rustle in dry leaves. A breath that does not belong to anyone you can see. You lie still, eyes half open, listening more than sleeping. Fear is Dutch part of staying warm. Your body reacts before your thoughts do. Muscles tense, breathing shortens. Heat rises briefly as adrenaline moves through you. That surge is useful if controlled. Panic wastes energy. Alertness just preserves it. You learn to ride the edge between the two. People around you stir slightly. No one bolts upright. That would burn too much warmth. Instead, heads lift slowly, ears strain. Hands find tools by feel. The fire crackles softly, steady, reassuring. Sound behaves differently at night. Cold air carries it farther. You know this now from experience. A footstep that seems close may be distant. A whisper of wind can mimic movement. Learning to interpret these sounds keeps you from jumping at shadows. You notice how fear sharpens your senses. The smell of smoke feels stronger. The texture of the hide against your cheek becomes vivid. Even the ground beneath you seems louder, transmitting tiny vibrations. In the dark, imagination fills gaps quickly. Shapes appear where none exist. A pile of branches becomes a crouched figure. A shadow stretches into something watching. You force yourself to blink slowly to breathe evenly. Fear costs heat if you let it spiral. The group responds the same way, each person acting as part of a larger organism. Someone shifts closer to the fire, adding fuel without flaring it. Another adjusts the windbreak quietly. A third rises just enough to scan the edge of camp, then settles again. This shared vigilance keeps everyone warmer than constant movement ever could. Instead of pacing or panicking, you conserve energy and let attention do the work. There is a small, almost unnoticed habit you pick up. When fear spikes, you tuck your hands into the warmest part of your body rather than clenching fists in the cold air. It keeps fingers flexible. It keeps circulation steady. You learn this not from instruction, but from repetition. Animals understand this balance too. You hear a distant howl far enough to be information rather than threat. The sound carries long and clear. It reminds you that you are not alone in listening. Nighttime fear also keeps you awake just enough. Deep sleep would be dangerous here. You drift instead, hovering between rest and readiness. Muscles stay loose. Joints stay warm. You realize that fear itself can be warming into short bursts. It raises body temperature. It sharpens focus. The trick is not letting it linger. Let it pass through, then settle again. Someone murmurs softly. Not words, just sound. It grounds you. You're part of a group. That knowledge calms the body more effectively than logic ever could. The fire dims slightly. Sparks pop. Shadows shift. Nothing emerges from the dark. The tension eases slow and gentle. Your breathing deepens again. Over time, you learn which sounds matter. The steady scrape of branches in wind is different from a deliberate step. The flutter of wings is not the same as padded movement. These distinctions become instinctive. Fear does not disappear. It becomes familiar. It stops shouting and starts whispering. That is when it's most useful. As the night stretches on, you wake less often. Not because you are careless, but because the environment feels understood, the sounds repeat, the patterns hold. You rest your cheek against the ground again, testing its temperature. Cold but tolerable. You adjust the hide once more and let your eyes close for a few longer breaths. Before walls existed to block sound, before doors dulled, the night fear was part of staying alive and staying warm. It kept people alert, cautious, and connected. You drift into shallow sleep with ears still open, body still curled, warmth still shared. The night continues to speak, but you have learned how to listen without losing heat. By now, hunger feels different. Not sharp, not urgent, but deep and steady like the cold itself. You notice how warmth comes and goes depending on what your body has to work with. When energy runs low, the chill sinks deeper. When food has been plentiful, heat lingers longer even when the fire fades. Earlier in the day, you ate slowly and deliberately. Fatty meat, tough and chewy, coated your mouth and stayed with you. Now you feel it paying you back. Heat rises from within, not dramatic, but constant. Your core stays warmer. Your fingers ache less. You understand without words that food is fuel, and fuel becomes warmth. Groups that survived long winters learned this quickly. Lean meals left people cold by midnight. Rich ones carried them through until dawn. Choices made during daylight echoed through the night. You shift closer to the fire and feel the difference between external warmth and internal heat. Fire warms skin, food warms blood. Both matter, but the can last longer. You breathe out slowly, letting the warmth spread. Someone passes around a small portion of preserved fat. It is dense, slightly rancid, but welcome. You chew, carefully savouring it, not for taste, but for effect. Within minutes, the cold seems less aggressive. Your shoulders loosen, your jaw unclenches. There is a quiet habit you notice. People eat their heaviest portions before sleep, not after waking. Night demands reserves. Morning can wait. The timing is deliberate, shaped by nights when poor planning led to shivering until sunrise. You rub your hands together and feel them warming faster than before. Circulation improves when the body senses abundance. Guesty tightens everything. Plenty allows flow. The fire crackles softly. Someone adds fuel, but less than usual. The group relies more on internal heat, now conserving wood. This balance between calories and flames stretches resources farther. You become aware of how stillness feels easier when fed. Muscles relax without stiffening. Sleep comes more readily. Hunger and cold feed each other. Fullness breaks the cycle. You tuck your chin into the hide and close your eyes briefly. The warmth inside holds steady. You wake again a few minutes later, not from cold but from habit. You adjust position, then settle back. Bodies around you radiate heat more evenly now. The group breathes slower. The fire is quieter. The night feels less hostile, though no less cold. You think about how much knowledge is wrapped up in this moment. When to eat, what to eat, how much to brave. These decisions decide whether the night is merely uncomfortable or dangerous. Someone nearby sighs, softly content. Another stretches, then stills. The shared calm is noticeable. Warmth spreads not just through bodies but through mood. As hours pass, you wake less often. The food carries you through. Your dreams are shallow, fragmented, but peaceful. Cold presses at the edges, but never breaks through. When the fire dips, no one rushes to feed it. The warmth inside is enough for now. The night moves on. Before houses and stored heat, survival depended on feeding the body as carefully as feeding the fire. Calories were counted in comfort and survival, not numbers. You learn that lesson tonight, one warm breath at a time. The night sky feels closer than before, as if it has lowered itself to watch you. Clouds drift slowly, thickening in some places, thinning in others. You look up often now, not out of wonder but out of habit. The sky tells you what the night intends to do. You have learned to read it. A clear sky brings sharper cold. Clouds hold heat close to the ground. You feel the difference even before the fire responds. Tonight, thin cloud moves in and out, and with it the temperature wavers. You adjust without thinking, loosening the hide when warmth rises, pulling it tight again when the air clears. People learned weather by watching, not measuring. The angle of the moon, the speed of drifting cloud, the way wind smells before it shifts. These signs mattered more than any tool once the sun went down. You notice the stars fade briefly, then return. Each change nudges your body into small corrections. Sit closer. Turn slightly. Add a layer of leaves. Remove one. You are constantly negotiating with the night, never fully at rest. Someone points silently toward the horizon. A low bank of cloud gathers there, heavy and slow. It will bring warmer air later, but perhaps snow. Snow means insulation, but also danger if it melts or collapses. You file the information away. There is a quiet knowledge, passed through gestures and glances. No one explains what the sky means. Everyone already knows or learns quickly by watching those who do. The fire behaves differently as air pressure shifts. Flames lean, then straighten. Smoke hangs low, then lifts. You watch it closely. Fire is a messenger. It shows you what the air is doing even when the sky is hidden. You remember earlier nights when the cold surprised you. Those nights were harder. Now anticipation softens the impact. Learning what's coming lets you prepare just enough. The ground tells its own story. Frost thickens when skies clear. Moisture rises when clouds gather. You press a hand into the soil and feel how stiff it has become. The earth cools faster than the air. Another sign. As the hours pass, cloud thickens. The cold loses its edge, becoming dull instead of biting. You relax slightly, knowing this pattern. Snow may come. If it does, you will adjust again. Someone nearby murmurs softly a comment about the sky. The sound is reassuring. Shared understanding lightens the mental load. You are not alone in watching. You pull the hide over your head, briefly testing how much warmth it traps. Too much and moisture builds. Too little and heat escapes. You settle on a balance and let your shoulders sink. Sleep comes in waves now. Short, gentle. Each time you wake, you check the sky, the fire, the wind. Everything remains within expectation. That predictability is calming. Before forecasts and clocks, nights were survived by attention. Weather was not background, it was conversation. You listened, responded, rested, and listened again. As dawn approaches, cloud thickens fully. The night holds its warmth just a little longer. You breathe easier knowing the worst cold has passed. You survived not by guessing but by watching. The sky spoke, you listened, and the night for once kept its promises. The ground looks different this morning. What was bare earth last night now wears a thin pale blanket. Snow, it lies softly unthinned, catching light in small sparkles. Your first instinct is dread. Snow means cold. But as you settle back down and feel the air around you, something surprises you. It is not as sharp as before. Snow changes the rules. You brush a hand across the surface. It is light and dry, barely clinging to your skin. Beneath it, the earth feels less biting than it did when exposed. Snow traps air, and trapped air slows the loss of heat. You did not invent this knowledge. You feel it immediately. People nearby begin to adjust. Instead of scraping snow away, they pile it gently along the edges of the windbreak. It forms a low wall bright in the firelight. The effect is subtle but real. The breeze dulls. The camp feels quieter, wrapped. You kneel and pull snow closer to your bedding, careful not to let it soak through. Dry snow insulates. Wet snow steals warmth fast. You test it with your fingers, learning the difference by touch. The fire behaves differently now. Its glow reflects off the white surface, spreading light farther than before. Shadows soften. The camp feels larger, brighter, despite the darkness beyond. Someone scoops snow into a shallow mound near the fire, not too close. It melts slowly, releasing water that steams faintly, adding moisture to the air. The effect calms the cold, taking its edge. You breathe in, noticing how the air feels heavier, less sharp. You remember watching animals disappear into snowbanks earlier, carving small pockets beneath the surface. Now you understand why. Beneath snow the world slows, temperature steadies. Wind loses its voice. You lie back and pull the hide around you again. Snow falls lightly on its surface, but you brush it away before it melts. You stay alert. Snow demands attention. Ignore it and it becomes danger. Work with it and it becomes shelter. The group grows quieter. Sound does not travel well through snow. Even the fire seems muted. Crackles turn soft. Voices drop naturally. The night feels padded. You notice that people move less now. Heat holds longer. The urgency fades. You stretch your legs slightly, then still them again, conserving warmth. There is a strange comfort in the white glow. It makes the dark feel less endless. The horizon is visible again even without stars. No gives the night shape. You watch flakes drift down slow and steady. Each one carries cold, but together they soften it. You adjust your bedding, again layering leaves, hide, then snow packed lightly at the edges, never beneath. The balance is delicate. Sleep comes easier. The cold no longer stabs, it presses gently instead. You wake once or twice to brush snow away, then settle again. By morning, the snow thickens. The ground beneath remains warmer than it was exposed. You rise stiff but intact. The lesson settles quietly. Not everything cold is an enemy. Snow can kill, snow can thieve. It depends on how you meet it. Before walls and roofs, people learned to read even the harshest elements for opportunity. Tonight, snow became insulation. The night passed softer because of it. You stand and stretch, watching steam rise from your breath into pale air. Another night survived not by fighting the cold, but by letting it change form. As the fire settles into a steady glow, voices begin to rise soft and low, carried just far enough to reach the edges of the circle. No one announces the shift. It happens naturally, the way breathing deepens once danger eases. Story time, though no one would call it that yet. You lean closer, not just for warmth, but for sound. Talking keeps people awake just enough. It slows panic, it steadies breathing. The night feels shorter when it is filled with voices instead of silence. You notice how words flow differently now, slower, measured, shaped to fit the rhythm of the fire. Someone begins with a memory half real, half shaped by repetition. A hunt that went wrong, a winter that lingered too long. Others add details, correcting gently or letting exaggeration stand. Accuracy matters less than effect. The story holds attention. Attention keeps bodies warm. You feel your shoulders relax as familiar patterns emerge. A beginning, a pause, a quiet laugh. The fire pops softly in agreement and fills cold spaces between people, insulating just as surely as hides and snow. Children listen wide-eyed, forgetting to shiver. Elders speak less, but when they do, everyone leans in. Their words carry weight, not volume. Knowledge travels this way, embedded in narrative, wrapped in repetition until it becomes instinct. You notice that stories tend to lengthen on colder nights. When warmth is scarce, words become fuel. Time stretches. No one rushes an ending. The night can be endured one sentence at a time. There is a small habit you catch yourself adopting. When a story grows tense, you draw the hide tighter. When it resolves, you loosen it slightly. Emotion shifts, body temperature subtle but real. Firelight flickers across faces as expressions change. Fear, humor, warning, reassurance. All of it plays out quietly layered over the crackle of wood. The camp feels alive, not just occupied. You realize that stories also keep people from sleeping too deeply. Laughter wakes the drowsy. Suspense sharpens focus. No one drifts fully away while words are moving. This shared wakefulness guards against cold and danger alike. Outside the circle of light, the world waits. Inside, the fire and voices create a fragile interior, a room without walls. You feel safer here, wrapped in sound as much as warmth. As the night wears on, voices fade one by one, stories shorten, words stretch farther apart. Silence returns slowly, gently, like snow settling. You close your eyes, letting the last murmured phrases linger. They echo softly in your mind, steadying you as sleep creeps closer. Before houses and hearths, before bedrooms and blankets, people carried warmth through stories. They filled the cold with meaning and the night with shared breath. You drift into rest with voices still humming in your ears, knowing that when they fade completely, morning will not be far behind. By now, the camp no longer feels accidental. What began as scattered bodies and borrowed shelter has taken on shape. You notice it as you wake briefly in the night and look around. The fire sits in a shallow hollow. The windbreak curves with intention. Bedding lies where it works best, not where it first fell. The space has been edited by use. This is how shelter begins, not all at once, not with walls and roofs. but with repeated adjustments that stick because they help. You shift slightly and feel how the ground beneath you has been tamped down, smoothed by many nights of weight and movement. A place remembered by the body. Branches have been leaned together more tightly now, their angles refined. Gaps filled, stones repositioned. The wind still moves beyond the barrier, but here it passes with less force. You feel it on your face and know it could be worse. You sit up and add another branch, pressing it into place with your foot. It holds. That matters. Something that holds through the night is worth repeating. Others notice too. Someone drags over a piece of bark and wedges it low, blocking a draft. Another stacks stones near the fire, not for height but to reflect heat. These changes are small, but they remain. No one undoes them in the morning. You realize that the camp is becoming familiar. Not permanent, but recognizable. When darkness returns, you know where to go, where warmth pools, where cold slips through. Memory attaches itself to place. You lie back again and feel the difference. The night presses less. Your body settles faster. Sleep comes more easily when the environment behaves predictably. There is a subtle shift in how people move through the space. Paths form between fire and bedding. Feet avoid certain patches. Everyone knows where not to step even in the dark. This reduces disruption. Fewer stumbles, less heat loss to unnecessary movement. You notice that some areas are avoided entirely. A damp patch, a low spot where cold collects. These are learned exclusions just as important as the chosen spot. The fire is fed from one side only now. This keeps sparks away from bedding and smoke moving consistently. Someone must have noticed the pattern earlier and stuck with it. You benefit without ever knowing their name. The shape of the camp begins to hold through multiple nights. It is not rebuilt from scratch, it is adjusted. This saves energy. Energy saved at dusk becomes warmth at midnight. You sit quietly and take it in. This is not architecture yet, but it is close. It is space shaped by need rather than design, a response to cold repeated until it becomes habit. You pull the hide tighter and feel how the shelter incomplete as it supports that effort. Wind and fire and ground now work together more smoothly. Less effort is needed to stay warm. Sleep deepens. You wake less often. When you do, nothing surprises you. The fire is where it should be. The barrier still stands. The ground feels familiar beneath you. Before houses existed, nights like this pushed people to notice what lasted. What failed? What was worth doing again? Shelter grew out of repetition, not invention. You close your eyes and rest more fully now, held not just by hides and bodies, but by a space that has learned you as much as you have learned it. The night does not always forgive mistakes. You feel that truth settle as the fire burns lower than expected, and no one moves fast enough to correct it. Cold creeps back in quietly, not with drama, but with certainty. Fingers stiffen, breath thickens. Someone coughs sharply, then goes still again. You have seen this edge before. A body shifts too slowly. A hide slips and stays that way for too long. Sleep deepens at the wrong moment. Small errors stack quietly and suddenly. The night feels heavier than it should. You sit up, heart thudding, warmth draining faster now. Someone nearby does not stir when they should. You notice it because their breathing sounds wrong. Too shallow. Too spaced. Ow! A hand rests against their shoulder. The skin feels colder than it should. Not frozen, not gone, but drifting. Action comes quickly now. Fire is fed hard, breaking the rule of conservation for the sake of urgency. Sparks jump, heat flares, smoke thickens. Someone rubs the still body's arms, not gently but firmly, forcing blood to move. Another presses close, sharing heat directly. You feel the tension ripple through the group. No one speaks. Words would waste breath. Everyone understands what is happening. This has happened before. The cold teaches brutally. It does not negotiate. It does not care if you're tired or careful. It waits for small failures. The person stirs eventually. A breath deepens, fingers twitch. Relief moves through the camp like warmth returning to numbed skin. Not joy, just quiet release. Another lesson narrowly survived. You sit back, hands shaking slightly, then still them against your thighs. Adrenaline fades, cold rushes in behind it. You pull the hide tight and lean closer to the fire, grateful for the chance to learn without paying the highest price. Not everyone was always so lucky. You know that without being told. The camp carries that knowledge in its habits. Why fires are checked so often. Why no one sleeps too deeply. Why warmth is shared even when space feels crowded. Near misses leave marks that last longer than strees. They shape behaviour. They sharpen attention. They make people unforgiving of small risks. You look around and see the night differently now. It is not just uncomfortable. It is conditional. It allows survival only if rules are followed closely. The fire steadies again, needful, I will say, and heat spreads. The moment passes, but it does not disappear. It settles into memory, another invisible boundary added to the night. You lie back down, but sleep does not come easily. Your body stays alert, ears tuned, muscles ready. The hide feels thinner now, though it has not changed. Perception shifts after fear. Eventually breathing slows again, the fire crackles softly. The group regains its rhythm, but the lesson remains close. Before walls and alarms, before insulated rooms and emergency systems, survival depended on catching these moments early. On noticing when someone drifted too far too fast. On acting without hesitation. The cold does not announce its victories, it takes them quietly. Tonight it was held back just in time. You close your eyes again, holding warmth carefully, knowing that vigilance is part of rest out here. Another night continues, thinner now, but still passable. By now you had have noticed something subtle but constant. Not every group you have passed through the night with does things the same way. The cold is universal, but the responses to it vary, shaped by land, memory, and habit. As you move and observe, these differences begin to stand out. In one place, people sleep close together, almost woven into a single mass of hides and limbs. In another, space is kept between bodies, but fires burn broader and lower. Somewhere else, the night is met with movement rather than stillness, pacing and shifting until dawn rather than curling in place. You feel the difference immediately when you join a new group. The rhythm of the night changes, how often people wake, how close they sit, how the fire is treated. None of this is explained. You learn by watching and adjusting. Cold lands teach different lessons. In open plains, wind is the enemy, and everything bends toward blocking it. Fires are shielded low, bodies turn sideways. In forests, moisture becomes the problem. Camps rise slightly. Bedding thickens. Firewood is chosen carefully, favouring what smokes less and burns steadier. You notice that people from colder regions seem calmer when temperatures drop. Their movements are economical, they waste nothing. Those from milder places fidget, more surprised by how quickly cold takes hold. Experience shows itself in posture long before it shows in words. There is a moment when someone laughs quietly at your hesitation, not unkindly. You had chosen a spot that looked comfortable but sits just low enough for cold air to pull. They gesture you higher toward a place you would have ignored before. You move, and within minutes feel the difference. You nod in thanks. Lesson learned. You begin to recognize patterns. In some groups, the fire is central, everything orbiting around it. In others, fire is one element among many balanced with windbreaks, clothing, and movement. Neither is wrong. Each fits the land that shaped it. You notice differences in sound too. Some nights are filled with murmured conversation, constant noise used to keep sleep light. Other nights are nearly silent, broken only by fire and wind. Silence here is not neglect. It is discipline. As you travel farther, you see how cold survival becomes part of identity. People wear their knowledge in how they move, how they sit, how quickly they respond when temperature shifts. You feel yourself changing too, adopting habits without realizing it. There is a small detail you find fascinating. In one group, people sleep facing outward backs to the fire-trusting heat to travel and eyes to guard. In another, everyone faces inward firelight reflecting off faces darkness left unattended. Both work, Both feel strange until you settle into them. Children adapt fastest. They copy whatever surrounds them. Elders adapt slowest, but carry habits that have already been tested many times. You watch this balance play out night after night. You realize that there is no single correct way to survive cold. There are only methods that match place and people. What fails in one landscape saves lives in another. As the night deepens, you find yourself anticipating shifts before they happen. Wind changes. Fires need adjusting. Someone moves and you already know why. You've absorbed enough variation to read intention without instruction. The cold itself feels less personal now. It's not an adversary. It is a condition. People meet it differently, but everyone must meet it somehow. You curl into your chosen spot and settle. The methods around you feel unfamiliar but effective. You trust them because you have seen them work. Before permanent shelter tied people to one place, survival knowledge travelled with bodies. It adapted as quickly as people did. Tonight you are part of that exchange learning, without asking, teaching, without speaking. The night holds steady. You breathe slowly, warmed by borrowed habits carried through darkness, by many different answers to the same cold question. The cold is not always treated as weather. Sometimes it feels like a presence, something that arrives with intention rather than accident. You sense this shift in how people speak as the night deepens. Voices lower, words become careful. Certain phrases are avoided altogether, as if naming the cold too directly might invite it closer. You sit quietly listening. Someone traces a small shape in the dirt near the fire, then smooths it away. Another mutters a short phrase before settling to sleep, more habit than prayer. These gestures are not dramatic. They are woven into routine done without pause or explanation. The night carries meaning here, not just temperature. You feel it in the way the fire is treated. Fuel is placed gently, not thrown. Flames are watched closely, almost respectfully. When sparks jump too high, someone murmurs, softly calming the moment rather than reacting sharply. Cold becomes a test in stories told earlier, a force that teaches patience, punishes arrogance, rewards attention. These ideas linger even when no one is speaking. They shape how people move and how risks are weighed. You notice that certain actions are delayed until morning, not because they are difficult, but because night is considered the wrong time. Cutting fresh wood, digging new ground, making loud changes, night asks for restraint. There is a subtle comfort in this framework. When the cold feels purposeful, it becomes something you can respond to rather than fear. You pull the hide tighter and feel less anxious doing so, as if you're participating in an exchange rather than defending yourself. Children absorb this easily. They mimic gestures. They repeat phrases under their breath. For them, the cold is not just sensation, it is story rule. Character. You lie back and watch smoke rise, twisting slowly toward the stars. It feels like communication, even if you do not know with whom. The fire becomes a boundary between the living and whatever waits beyond the light. You do not fully believe in what is implied, but belief is not required for effect. Shared meaning calms groups. It organizes behavior, it reduces chaos when conditions are harsh. As the night stretches on, fear feels quieter. Not gone, but contained. You know what is expected of you. Stay still, share warmth, tend the fire with care, respect the dark. Before walls and insulation, before written explanations of weather and climate, people needed ways to make sense of nights that could kill without warning. Meaning filled that gap. You close your eyes, breathing slow and steady. The cold presses, but it no longer feels random. It feels known, and that somehow makes it easier to endure. As the night settles into its familiar rhythm, you begin to notice how tasks quietly divide themselves. No one announces roles, no one assigns duties. Yet patterns form as naturally as breath in cold air. Some bodies move more, others stay still. Some hands tend the fire, others guard the edges. You find yourself doing what suits your strength without thinking about it. Those with broader shoulders drift toward the outer ringbacks to the wind legs braced. Smaller bodies stay closer to the fire, shielded on multiple sides. It is not about status. It is about physics. Heat moves outward, cold presses inward, the arrangement responds accordingly. You watch how certain people remain awake longer. They feed the fire, they adjust barriers, they scan the dark. When exhaustion finally pulls them down, others rise to replace them. The exchange is quiet, seamless. No one keeps count. The body knows when it has had enough. Some tasks repeat night after night, gathering fuel before dusk, checking bedding before sleep, making sure water is close but not freezing. These habits fall into the hands of those who remember to do them. Memory becomes responsibility. You notice that some people specialize without naming it. One person always seems to know which wood burns slowest. Another senses wind shifts before they arrive. Another wakes instantly when the fire dims. These tendencies harden into expectation. Children watch all of this closely. They copy movements before understanding reasons. They learn where to sit, when to be quiet, when to shift. No one lectures them. The night teaches efficiently. You feel the weight of responsibility when you take a turn tending the fire. Hands move carefully. Too much fuel wastes heat, too little invites danger. The balance requires attention. You stay focused longer than you expected. The cold sharpens awareness of usefulness. Everyone contributes something. Even stillness matters when it preserves warmth for others. As hours pass, fatigue deepens but structure holds. The camp does not dissolve into chaos. It tightens. Roles overlap. Gaps close quickly. You realize that these divisions are temporary, not rigid. Strength shifts. Energy fades. Tonight you guard. Tomorrow you may rest. Flexibility keeps the group alive. You settle back into your place, relieved to feel someone else take over the fire. Warmth flows again. You breathe easier. Before houses, before fixed domestic spaces, nights organized people more than days ever did. Darkness demanded coordination. Cold demanded efficiency. You survive by fitting into a system that changed with every sunset. As sleep returns, you hold on to that sense of belonging. Not assigned, not demanded, simply earned by doing what the night required. The fire crackles softly. The wind waits beyond the barrier. Inside the circle, roles blur back into rest. Another night continues held together by quiet cooperation. The cold works on the mind as much as the body. You feel it when thoughts begin to slow, when decisions take longer to form, when small problems feel heavier than they should. Night stretches, perception turning minutes into long spans of waiting. How you meet that mental weight matters. You notice how people manage it differently. Some focus outward, watching the fire, the wind, the dark beyond the light. Others turn inward, repeating quiet routines, counting breaths, rubbing hands together in steady patterns. Both approaches keep panic at bay. You find your own rhythm somewhere between the two. You watch for a while, then close your eyes and breathe slowly. Inhale through the nose. Exhale into the hide pulled over your mouth. Warm air stays close. The body responds with calm. Cold has a way of inviting doubt. You feel it whisper questions. Is the fire enough? Will the wind shift? Did you choose the right place to lie down? These thoughts can spiral if you let them. You learn to answer them with action instead. Adjust the hide, check the fire, settle again. Confidence becomes a tool, not the loud kind, but the quiet certainty that comes from repetition. You have survived many nights now. This one is not new. Reminding yourself of that keeps muscles loose and breathing steady. You notice how humour surfaces even here. A soft comment about stiff fingers. A quiet smile when someone fumbles with a log. Laughter releases tension, warming the chest briefly. It reminds you that cold does not own the night completely. Some people hum again, low and steady. The sound vibrates through the body, easing nerves. You try it yourself, barely audible. The effect surprises you. Warmth spreads subtly, not from heat, but from relaxation. Sleep comes in short pieces. Each time you wake, you orient quickly. Fire, bodies, windbreak, everything where it should be. That reassurance lets you rest again without tension. You realize that the mind can either fight the cold or flow with it. Fighting burns energy. flowing conserves it. Acceptance is not surrender, it is strategy. As the night deepens, your thoughts grow simpler. You stop worrying about dawn and focus on the next breath, the next adjustment, the next moment of stillness. This mental narrowing feels peaceful rather than empty. The cold strips away excess concern, leaving only what matters: warmth, safety, belonging. You drift again, hovering between awareness and rest. Dreams brush past without pulling you under. You wake easily, adjust, settle. Before, insulated walls and steady indoor heat survival depended on this mental balance. Staying calm kept bodies warm, staying focused kept people alive. You exhale slowly and let the night carry you forward. The cold remains, but it no longer feels overwhelming. You have learned how to meet it from the inside. When dawn comes now, it brings more than light. It brings reminders. You see them in the way people move, as they rise stiff but deliberate. You hear them in short comments exchanged while hands warm over the fire. The night has left marks, not wounds, but lessons. These lessons don't stay in one body. You watch as small habits are repeated with care. Bedding is shaken and laid out to dry. Fire tools are set in familiar places. Windbreaks are checked before anyone wanders far. These actions happen every morning, not because someone insists, but because forgetting would be costly. Children follow closely, mimicking each step. They drag smaller branches, stack lighter stones, press leaves where they have seen adults do it before. Mistakes are corrected gently, often without words. A hand redirects, a nod confirms. Learning happens through repetition, not explanation. You notice how stories from the night are retold, shortened, sharpened. A moment when the fire burned low, a place where the wind found a gap. These details are not framed as warnings, but as memory. Remember this spot, remember this sound, remember what worked. Elders listen more than they speak. When they do speak, it is often to confirm what everyone already knows. Their value lies in continuity. They have seen this cold before. They have watched it behave the same way over and over across years and places. As the day unfolds, preparation for the next night begins almost immediately. Fuel is gathered early, bedding is improved, shelter is adjusted while light makes the work easier. Night is never far from mind, even at midday. You take part without thinking about it. You fix a loose branch, you test a hide for thin spots, you choose a place to sleep while the sun is still high-noting where shadows fall and wind funnels. This foresight feels natural now. There is comfort in knowing that what you learn will not vanish with you. The way you curl against the cold, the way you listen for changes, the way you respond quickly but calmly. These behaviours pass from body to body, shaped slightly each time, but recognizable. You realize that tradition is not the ceremony here, it is practice. It is the quiet agreement to do what works again tomorrow. As evening approaches, the camp reforms almost automatically. Everyone knows where to go, where to sit, where to sleep. The night arrives, but it does not feel new. You lie down as darkness settles, warmed not just by fire and hides, but by the weight of shared memory. Nights like this have been endured before. Nights like this will be endured again. Before houses fixed knowledge into walls and floors, survival lived in movement and habit. It travelled through hands, through posture, through breath. Tonight you carry it forward. Some nights unravel, despite everything you have learned. You sense it early in the way the fire refuses to cooperate, in the way fuel burns faster than it should, in the way the wind changes its mind again and again. Tonight feels thin, unstable. Like warmth is slipping through your fingers no matter how carefully you try to hold it. The fire sinks low, then lower still. Wood hisses instead of catching. Smoke thickens, then collapses inward. Someone feeds the flames, but they respond sluggishly, glowing without strength. The heat they give back is weak, uneven. You move closer, then pull back again when sparks threaten the hide. There is no perfect distance now. Every position feels compromised. Wind sneaks through places that were solid before. A branch shifts. A stone settles. Cold air finds the gap instantly. You feel it along your spine, sharp and sudden. You press your back tighter, trying to block it with your body, but the effort costs warmth. People stir more often. Sleep fractures into moments too short to restore anything. Breathing grows shallow. Muscles tighten without fully warming. The night stretches stubborn and unforgiving. Someone mutters softly, frustration leaking out despite the effort to stay calm. Another rises to adjust the barrier, again hands stiff and clumsy. The branch slips from their grip and falls with a dull thud. The sound feels louder than it should. You realize that the fire may not last the night. Attention sharpens instantly. Fuel is gathered from the edges of camp, whatever can be found quickly. Smaller pieces, damp ones, anything. The flames flare briefly, then retreat again like an animal conserving strength. You press closer to others, sharing what warmth remains. Bodies overlap more tightly now. Comfort gives way to necessity. Every bit of heat matters. The cold feels different when fire fades. It seeps inward instead of pressing from outside. Fingers ache. Toes throb. You rub them slowly, carefully, fighting numbness without exhausting yourself. Someone suggests moving. Not far, just enough to find shelter from the shifting wind. The group hesitates. Movement risks sweat. Sweat risks worse cold later, but staying here may be worse. A decision forms without discussion. People rise carefully, gathering what they can carry. Fire is abandoned, reluctantly embers glowing faintly as you turn away. The loss feels heavy. You move as a cluster, slow and deliberate, searching for terrain that might offer relief. A shallow dip, a stand of trees, anything to break the wind. When you find it, you settle quickly, rebuilding just enough. Bodies pressed together. Hides are rearranged. Someone manages to coax a small flame back to life, weak but alive. The sight brings a quiet wave of relief. This night will not be comfortable. You know that now. It will be endured minute by minute, breath by breath. You stay awake longer than usual, monitoring sensation closely. Numbness is pushed back with movement. Shivering is controlled, allowed only enough to generate heat. Sleep becomes a distant goal rather than an expectation. Hours pass slowly. The sky does not change. The cold does not ease, but you remain here, still breathing, still adjusting. When the fire finally strengthens enough to hold, it feels like a gift rather than a tool. You lean into it carefully, grateful for even its modest warmth. By the time dawn begins to thin, the darkness exhaustion weighs heavy. But you have made it through another failure. Another night where conditions refuse to cooperate. Before reliable shelter, before predictable heat, survival depended not on perfect nights but on recovering from bad ones. Tonight taught you that even preparation has limits. What matters is what you do when those limits are reached. You close your eyes briefly as light creeps back into the sky, knowing this night will be remembered. Not for comfort, but for endurance. The cold no longer feels surprising. It feels familiar, almost expected, like an old weight that settles onto your shoulders as darkness returns. You notice how quickly the group responds now. Movements are efficient. Decisions are shorter. The memory of the last difficult night still lingers, guiding every choice. You do not wait for the fire to weaken this time. Fuel is gathered early and stacked within reach. Bedding is thickened before the sun fully fades. Windbreaks are reinforced while hands still work easily. Preparation feels urgent but calm. You choose your sleeping place carefully, testing the ground with your palm, feeling where cold gathers and where it slides away. You remember the dip that failed you before and avoid it. Instead, you settle where the land rises just enough to stay dry and still. As the fire is lit, its flame steadies quickly. You feel a quiet satisfaction in that. No struggle, no delay. The warmth spreads smoothly, predictable. The group relaxes a fraction, shoulders, dropping breath, slowing. You lie back and watch the sky darken. Stars appear one by one. The night feels less hostile now, not because it has changed, but because you have. Sleep comes easier, but you remain alert. You wake briefly to adjust the hide, to check the fire, to listen. Each time everything holds, the barrier stands, the fire glows. The cold presses but does not break through. You realize that nights like these are what pushed people to imagine something more permanent, not in a sudden leap, but through accumulation. Each cold night adds weight to the idea that carrying shelter with you might be better than rebuilding it again and again. Someone nearby murmurs about staying longer in one place next season. Another nods silently. The thought hangs in the air, not yet a plan, but no longer impossible. You picture it without meaning to. Walls that block wind completely, roofs that hold heat in, floors lifted from the ground. The idea feels distant but tempting. The fire crackles softly. Smoke drifts upward unchallenged. You stretch your legs and feel warmth linger longer than before. This night is not gentle, but it is manageable. You drift into sleep more deeply now, trusting the systems in place. When you wake again, dawn is already close. Light thins the dark, cold loosens its grip. As you sit up, stretching stiff muscles, you feel a quiet shift inside. Endurance has turned into expectation. Survival no longer feels like a miracle, it feels like a process. Before houses existed, it was nights like this that planted the first seeds. Not comfort, but consistency. Not shelter yet, but the desire for it. You rise with the sun knowing that something is changing. The cold is still here, the night will return, but the idea of meeting it differently has taken root. The night feels different now, even before it arrives. You sense it in the way people linger longer, in one place, in how effort shifts from constant adjustment toward small acts of improvement. The camp no longer dissolves completely at dawn. Pieces remain, a windbreak left standing, stones kept in a familiar ring, a patch of ground slowly changing under repeated use. You wake before full darkness and notice how the space holds memory. Your body knows where to sit without searching. Your hands reach for tools without looking. The land itself feels less indifferent, shaped by nights endured and repeated. Someone drags heavier branches than usual and leans them together more deliberately, not just to block wind, but to create a corner. Another fills gaps with bark and packed earth. The shape is still open to the sky, but the air inside it moves differently. Slower, calmer. You step inside and feel the change immediately. The wind dulls, sound softens, heat lingers longer near the fire. You exhale without realizing you are holding your breath. No one calls it anything, no one claims ownership, but something has shifted. This is not just a place to pass through the night. It is a place shaped to receive it. You sit back and watch how others respond. Bodies relax faster. Sleep comes easier. Less energy is spent fighting small problems. The night still exists, but it presses less insistently. You think back to earlier nights, curling against open ground, listening for every sound, waking constantly to adjust. All of it taught you what mattered. Now those lessons are being turned into structure. The fire burns steadier inside this partial enclosure. Sparks rise and fall without being scattered by wind. Smoke lifts more predictably. Heat reflects back instead of disappearing into darkness. You feel a quiet satisfaction, not pride, relief. The sense that effort has begun to pay forward rather than merely keeping you alive hour by hour. Sleep deepens in a way you have not felt before. Still not reckless, still light enough to wait, but smoother, less fractured. Your body trusts the space around it, just enough to let go. As dawn approaches, you notice how the shelter remains. It does not collapse when people rise. It waits, a place ready to be used again. You understand now how houses began, not as inventions but as accumulations. Each cold night added pressure. Each small improvement stayed. Over time, openness narrowed. Walls grew, roofs followed. You stand in the early light and look at what has been left behind. Branches leaning, stones stacked, ground flattened. It is humble, temporary, imperfect, but it works better than nothing, and that difference is everything. Before doors and windows, before hearths and chimneys, there were moments like this. Moments when people realized the night did not always have to be met from scratch. You stretch breathing in cool morning air. The cold has not vanished. It never will. But it has been answered. You walk away knowing that when darkness returns, it will return to something prepared, something remembered, something waiting. As the story loosens its grip, you feel your own space again. The room around you is quiet. The weight of the night you imagined fades into a softer calm. Your breathing slow, steady and even, like embers settling after a long burn. You no longer need to listen for wind or watch the fire. The cold you followed across so many nights has done its work. It taught patience, cooperation, attention. Now it steps back, letting rest take over. Thoughts drift gently without urgency. Images soften. Firelight dims. Snow quiets. The world grows smaller, safer, wrapped in stillness. You let your shoulders sink. Your jaw loosens. Your hands rest easily where they are. Nothing is required of you now. No adjustments. No vigilance. Just rest. The night continues without you as it always has, and you at last can sleep.